I live out this Christian life, the more I'm convinced that people who say, I love God, I don't need church, or people who call themselves Christians, who profess Christ, but are not part of any local church, they're not committed, they're not formal members of any local church, I sincerely I believe that they're wrong, all right? And if anyone would come up to me and say that, I would be honest and say to their faces that I would doubt the genuineness of their conversion, and I would doubt the sincerity of their faith. And I say this for many reasons, because the truth of the matter is, people who say this, that, I love God, I just don't need church, or I'm accountable to, like, I attend church A, but my accountability partners are in church B, church F, church X, I don't believe it. The truth of the matter is, they don't want accountability. They want isolation. They do not want people to know what they're doing. And at the end of the day, I believe that these are people who claim to be Christians but are not real Christians. They like the thought of being called Christian. They probably enjoy the reputation or branding that they brand themselves as Christian, because there's a kind of moral credibility there of some sort. There's a moral uprightness to it. They sound conservative and all of that, but deep down they reject accountability because they have their own secret sins, their own subtle sins, their own secret ungodly habits, lifestyle, sinful patterns, things like that. So, and the truth of the matter is, a lot of people will say, oh, you can't judge me. How dare you judge me? And I would say, I do dare judge you, because the Bible talks about formal membership. The Bible actually addresses what real accountability looks like and what fake accountability looks like. When you go to church A, but you're not accountable to anybody in church A because you say your accountability partners are in church X, church Y, church Z, the people in church Z does not see if you attend church on Sunday. They don't see if you're worshiping God. They don't see if you're really listening to the sermon or you're fiddling with your phone. They don't see if you're really talking to people about your life, or you just attend and then you go home. And even if you meet each other every week, I just don't believe it. I don't. Because even if you meet every week, and even if you share so many things to them, here's the truth. Here are facts, and you cannot deny these facts. The people in church Z have no authority over you. The people in church X have no ability to really put you under real local church discipline. They cannot do those things because you're not under anyone's authority, because you're keeping yourself isolated. You don't like being told what to do. You don't want to submit. And the Bible actually talks about that as Christians, there is a way we're supposed to live. You don't get to choose how you live. If you're a Christian, Jesus is Lord, Master, He is boss, He is the king over your life, He is sovereign over you. And so you don't get to choose how you live. You don't get to say, Jesus is my Lord, but I will not obey Him in terms of my Christian life, in terms of my submission to authority, in terms of His call for me to be under the leadership, under submission, under authority of any pastor or shepherd. So what do? You attend the church and pretend. So you attend to pretend, right? That you're under some sort of authority, but not really. Once you sin, and once you don't like someone's message, once you don't like a sermon that addresses your sin, you can just church hop to another church, to another church, to another church. You're looking for churches that will tickle your itching ears. And when you talk to accountability partners, they cannot really call you out because you're pretending to be accountable. But once they do, and once they threaten to call the pastor of the church you attend, you're out of that church. You disappear from that church. You go to another church. Because the truth is, your heart is rebellious. Your heart, the allegiance of your heart is still to your sin, and all you want is to pretend. You attend to pretend. And when that happens, I tell you, you gotta examine your own faith. You gotta examine if you're really a genuine Christian. Because if you disobey God in the realm of accountability and you refuse to submit to not just God, but the authority structure, the spiritual authority structure that God commands every Christian to have, that every pastor or elder is accountable to God and to each other as fellow elders and to the church that they are overseeing, just as the flock that they're overseeing is accountable to them. So there's mutual accountability. If you're not doing that and you're pretending to be submissive, blah, 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 and you have all these excuses, you might want to re-examine the genuineness of your conversion if you are a real Christian. And I don't say this lightly. I know some of you are going to bristle. You're going to cringe. You're going to say, wow, he's really judging my faith. And I will say, yes, I have to, for your own sake. Because I know the dangers of being isolated. I know the dangers of not being accountable. I've seen countless people who claim to love God, who claim to be Christian, who claim to be sincere in their faith, fall over and over again, time and time again, running after sin, rejecting God, rejecting Jesus, rejecting the Lord and Master who they claim to have bought them from sin, to run to sin, simply because they have deceived themselves, thinking that if they have deceived others and they have deceived themselves, they can deceive God. But that's the danger. I say this out of concern. I say this firmly because I know that there are so many Christians out there who make these excuses. I love God. I don't need the church. Oh, the church is so full of so many bad people. They're so full of hypocrites. I'm traumatized. Your trauma, as real as they may be, not all painful experiences are traumas, okay? Don't say you got hurt, you're traumatized. A trauma is very different from getting hurt. Regardless if it's real, legit trauma or it was just a painful experience, there's no excuse. If you had legitimate trauma, you can go to a healthy church, you can bring that up with their elders and leaders, and you can find ways to heal, and you can get counsel to heal from the trauma. Trauma is not an excuse to disobey God in certain areas of your life. Trauma is not an excuse to rebel against the calling of God for all people. Why? Especially Christians. Why? Because God's call in our lives to submit to a church, if you're a pastor or elder, then you're called to submit to the accountability of your flock, just as your flock is accountable to you and you're accountable to God. There's also mutual accountability there. All these structures God has designed for our healing. Trauma is healed by obedience to God's word. Your trauma, if it's legitimate, your trauma will never heal if you disobey God. Your trauma will not find healing outside the will of God. Your trauma will find its healing inside the will of God. And it's scary. It may freak you out. You'll get triggered. You're going to see people again in church doing sin. You're going to hear Bible verses that traumatized you in the past because they were misused, misapplied, preached, talked about out of context. But God's will heal trauma. I hope you guys listen to this with an open heart. I hope I said it with enough force and firmness in tone to shock you, but not to the point of hurting you and scaring you. I hope this was helpful, guys. God bless you.